welcome to another review from Colour with Claire. Today I'm reviewing The Baker's Dozen colouring book by Wendy Edelson and Aaron Shepard. So the original Baker's Dozen storybook was written and released in 1995, and it's written by Aaron Shepard and Wendy does the illustrations. So originally Wendy's illustrations were in watercolour and they've now been converted to a grayscale image for colouring. So this is a grayscale book and it does include a storybook element as well. So it's just telling you a little bit here about it being a colouring book and a storybook, a two-in-one, and it said that it's based on an authentic legend revealing the origin of the term baker's dozen and tells how St. Nicholas taught a baker to be generous. And it's just telling you that it is a grayscale book. It says here on this side, why choose this colouring book? So it's saying adapted from a beloved children's picture book with an inspiring traditional Christmas legend retold by award-winning children's author Aaron Shepard. We've got 15 pages of finely detailed art by Wendy Edelson, and it's just explaining about pictures being printed on one side of the paper and backed with grey to reduce the see-through. It says that it's high quality paper, pure white for maximum brightness, contrast and colour fidelity, with a smooth matte coating to reduce bleed and feathering and consume less of your colouring media. I think that is pretty much all the info we need to know for now. Then we have the title page, and it has this long strip here of cookies which you can colour if you wanted to. It also has space for your name and the date that you began or ended the book. So we're going straight into the storybook now, and you can see on the left hand side that is where we have the text, the actual story itself, and then on this side we have the illustration. So you can see that all of these illustrations have a rather thick black border around them, and they are incredibly grey and quite dark. So obviously this is a grayscale book, and that's why. Now, as you know, I'm not particularly into grayscale. I find it difficult to colour, but to be honest with you, as you'll see later on when you see the page that I coloured, it wasn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be, and it turned out really, really well, very bright and vibrant, and you wouldn't expect that looking at the depth of the shadowing in these images. So the story itself is about a baker, and he bakes his Christmas cookies every year. Everybody comes to his bakery, they all love his wares, and he's doing really well. And then one day an old lady comes in and she asks for a dozen cookies. He gives her 12 and she demands another. And he obviously is quite irked by this and said, no, a dozen is 12. She says, well, I think it's 13, and your lack of generosity is going to harm your business. And so basically he goes for the next year with no customers, and they just whittle down to nothing, and his cookies all go wrong, all of his cakes and bread fail to rise, and everything goes wrong after he was visited by this woman. So here is the page that I've coloured, and you can see here she's getting rather irate, asking for an extra cookie. And yeah, so I said earlier that about the colours looking vibrant. As you can see, they really do. I used Prismacolor pencils on this, so it's not even as if I used markers or anything quite saturated, and it still came out really vivid. So I'm actually really pleased with how it turned out, and quite surprised as well that it turned out as well as it did. So I was using, as I say, Prismacolors, and using darker tones in the more grey areas and lighter tones in the whiter areas. And even on the white elements, you can just add a bit of warm grey into those shadows, and it creates that look of crinkled white fabric. So we continue with the story. This is the part where all of his bread and cakes and things are just not rising and not tasting very nice at all. And this is coming up for a year later, and he has a dream, and he dreams that he's a child again, and Santa Claus is there, St. Nicholas in this story. It's a Dutch tale. And the baker dreams of being a boy who is handing out Christmas presents, and the presents just keep coming. The basket never gets empty, and everybody has the chance to get a present, and a little bit more and a little bit more. And he realises after this that he always gives his customers exactly what they pay for, not more and not less, but why not give more? And so the next day he goes into his bakery and decides to begin baking his famous St. Nicholas cookies again. And they taste absolutely amazing, and his first customer is that very same old lady in the shawl who says, I've come for a dozen of your cookies, and he counts out 12 and another, so 13 in total. He says, in this shop from now on a dozen is 13, and then the old lady says, you've learnt to count very well and you will surely be rewarded. And as she's walking out the door, he sees the very flash kind of quick trail of a red cloak. So obviously she's St. Nicholas disguised as an old lady, and the book is just basically teaching you about being generous and just giving a little bit more. If you give, it will come back to you, so you know, don't be tight, just you know, be rewarded by your generosity basically. So now the baker's dozen has been a custom that has come down and down throughout the centuries, and we now ask for a baker's dozen and expect to get 13 instead of 12. And then at the end you've got a picture of the baker, Santa or St. Nicholas, and the old lady as well. So I've just done a very little patch here of water-based pen just to check if there was any bleed through, and you can see just a slight bit of shadowing on the other side. The paper is a medium weight. It feels very, very glossy, but it does take blended pencils very, very well. So I'm not really sure what they've coated this paper with, but it is a very good choice anyhow. And it is of course backed in grey, so that really quite stops any bleed through coming through to the other side. This is telling you about the original book, about the artist, and about the author, Aaron Shepard. And then we've come to the end. So this isn't a Create Space Amazon produced book. It has been published. I'm not sure who the publisher is. Let's see if we can find out. Should have some. Oh, Skyhook Press. So it has been published by a publishing house. The paper is very good quality. It has this landscape orientated format to it, and a very simple card cover. Now the thing that I didn't notice until literally just before I started this review is on the back every single image is shown in its original watercolour format. So looking at the picture that I actually coloured this one here, I didn't get the colours far wrong actually. Obviously you can do colours however you want and it doesn't have to match this, but I was actually pretty pleased with how closely certain things matched on this. So it's nice to have that bit of a thumbnail reference on the back if you do want to stay true to the original artwork. Now this book is available on Amazon UK and US. In the UK it's £10 currently, and the US $12. And of course all of the links are going to be in the description box below this video. So let me know if you enjoyed looking at this book. Let me know what you think of it in the comments. Don't forget to click the thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And of course, subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon on Colour with Claire.